March. Donovan Mitchell, perfect in every single way last night. A dominating third quarter, a distributing fourth quarter, and the Jazz get the win against Chicago. And is it possible that a night where Nickell Alexander-Walker stole the show, that Juancho Hernengomez might be an answer for the Utah Jazz? It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thanks very much for tuning in, making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. Yay! First listen of the day. Thanks very much for tuning in. We're free and available on all platforms. Special hello to Ray and Bryce and Forrest and Jace and Matthew and Lacey. The regular crew is all alive and well and kicking in this morning. So glad to have everyone aboard. Donovan Mitchell was incredible last night. The array of things he did in the third quarter offensively, it all started when Merrick Kogut did not call a foul. And then Donovan did not check to see how Merrick Kogut, who was born in Kyiv, Ukraine, and was actually moved at 14 days to Brooklyn, felt about the conflict in Ukraine. Instead, he went absolutely bananas in the third quarter. And with an array of different things, the off the bounce three, which Donovan has developed, he was about a 31% off the bounce 3-point shooter, and he's now about 36, which is, right around the Dame Lillard category, is allowed him to just kind of bust the game open. And if you follow it, kind of look at the different ways he scores. He hits a driving layup to start it on a nice Mike Conley pass. He then hits his pull-up three. He then hits a step-back three. He then misses a layup, and that's where he gets his technical. So as much, by the way, as the narrative, just to make sure I'm fair about things from yesterday, is that Donovan went scorched earth after the tee. And he did, in fact, at one point, make a shot and look back and basically stare down the official like, you created this, the way he has to fans. The fact is that he had already scored 8 points in the quarter in the span of the last 2 minutes. So he was hot to start. He then misses his next shot on a 6-foot floater. Clarkson makes a bunch of plays. And then it gets silly. He hits back-to-back pull-up threes. And this starts to now open things up. Now there's drives to the basket. He hits another three off a Rudy Gay give. He gets a jump shot. Both of those are catch and shoots off other actions, though, as now he drives to the basket and draws a foul. He gets caught and throws one over, and then he hits another jump. His last few buckets are actually catch and shoot threes. And, that's the one area where Donovan this year has not been as good as he's always been. So Donovan's catch and shoot game has been as good as any player in the NBA this side of Joe Harris. And this year, his catch and shoot game coming into the All-Star break was at about 32%, which, considering the fact that he was at 42% on catch and shoot threes prior, was a surprising number. Donovan was 31.6% pre-All-Star break. Post-All-Star break, that part of his game is back. His number right now is 49% post-All-Star break, as he's 23 of his last 47. You can actually back it up to about instead of the last 10 games, you go to kind of the 5 games before the break, and he's still up at 43. He's back to his career average. So you add the off-the-bounce three game that Donovan's developed at the Dame, Steph Curry, who was the coach that said that? Was it Monty Williams that said that? One of the coaches kind of talked about him in that realm. So you add that, you add his drive to the basket, and then you add now if he gives it up or Conley gives it up and we swing it around, he's getting it back. You now have one of the elite catch and shoot guys in the NBA, and now Donovan has the whole bag going. I'll tell you what was impressive to me was the fourth quarter. The underlying part of yesterday's show, which was, you either liked or you didn't. Some didn't. I got those messages. Was the fact that he gave up the ball. He was forced to give up the ball, and he did give up the ball. So Alexander-Walker to open the fourth quarters hit a three. Conley's hit Gobert on a beautiful pick and roll. Alexander-Walker's actually made, another basket and a play, and we're ahead by 8 when Donovan comes back in the game. And Donovan gets a layup early in that stretch, and then they start double teaming Donovan, and he gets off the ball, and the Jazz make the plays. Alexander-Walker ends up hitting 2 threes off of it, which is pretty awesome, and we'll talk about that. But and one of them was an inbound play where the Bulls just weren't ready. The other was a play, if I remember correctly, in which they come after Donovan. And when you have the off the bounce 3 game, now you actually have the ability to make passes and get guys available, because if you have this off the bounce 3 game, at minimum, they're double teaming you at 30 feet. Now, the Jazz did some interesting things last night, but Donovan spun away from that double team on the Nickell Alexander-Walker 3. He starts to his, I think it was right to left, and then just brilliantly spins out of it. So now the double team's on the wrong side, and he's going to throw the pass to Rudy, but LaVine comes in, and he flares it out to Alexander-Walker, who hits the shot. A massive play at 108.99 with 6 minutes left, probably the backbreaker. So a bunch of interesting things on this play. I don't want to get too overwhelmed detail. This is the same kind of double stagger early offense the Jazz were running. They were a little messed up on their spacing, but the Bulls were doing something really interesting last night, and I'll have to talk to our coaches to understand it. But they were really shading and jumping out Nikola Vucevic on the pick side. So if Donovan went off the pick, he was pre-wrote, the big was out above, which meant Rudy's roll should be open. But it also meant that Donovan did something really crafty here. And this is why I wanted to bring up this play. So I hope I can describe this well, but when Donovan was coming at the pick and roll, if he's got the pick to his right hand, he's going to go out the pick with his right hand. Vucevic was already out, even to Rudy, in the open floor, to the side of Rudy, standing there to stop him. Most often, the big is behind Rudy because they don't want him to roll. They want to hold his roll. They had pre-rotated Vucevic out. So that if Donovan came out that pick, he runs into Vucevic, and then they were going to double. Donovan took one step that way and then curled back the other way, leaving Vucevic really in no man's land. Now, Rudy rolls correctly, and now LaVine's on the baseline having to guard 2 guys, and Donovan makes the right choice. But the intelligence of Don on that play to kind of read what they'd been doing throughout the day and then curl back is that next level stuff where he's on this heater. He's got 35 going. He's ripping through, smoking, and yet he's smart enough to make that play. Also knowing, and this is where I think he's most different and he's evolved, he's going in that possession knowing he's passing. They're doubling me. I'm probably not getting the shot off. If something opens up, I'll take it. But I'm probably going to have to move it right here. And he comes off that pick and hits Alexander-Walker for the 3. That's a big play. He was really great. I talked with Alvin Gentry, who was Alexander-Walker's first coach, about what he thought he was capable of and what he might be able to do earlier this week. So I'll share that with you. And I actually think Juancho Hernangomez might be an answer for the Jazz. Whether it actually happens or not, I don't know. But as we move toward the playoffs, I'll make the case next of why Juancho Hernangomez, actually maybe for 15 minutes a night in the old George Niang role, is probably the best answer, or might be the best answer for the Jazz. We'll see what you think of that. maybe you'll tell me you think I'm completely full of it and that's the worst argument ever. It's not the strongest argument, but I can try. Today's show brought to you by our good friends over at betonline.net. As the NBA, the college basketball world starts to fire it up and get going. It's available for you with all sorts of information and news and the rest, taking over at betonline.net for you. The let's see, the tournament kicks off. Well, the tournament kind of already kicked off, didn't it? Right? The tournament kicked off yesterday, or with the playing games, and gets going today. So best spot for all your sports scores, podcast, and news. It's not just Bet Online. It's continue to secure all your sport wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or on your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's show is also brought to you by Athletic Greens. It's a pretty good way to start the morning, Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens is 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, antipathogens to help you start your day right. The special blend supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Aging. You got me at aging. Grab it, quick little drink in the morning. Throw a scoop in with 12 ounces of water or do something else, orange juice, whatever you decide better. And it helps you with a lifestyle friendly, whether you're keto or paleo or vegan or just normal. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial flavors. Sports better sleep quality as well, they say. It costs less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper. So right now, you can get a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance, Athletic Greens. All right, so I talked to Alvin Gentry when they were in town because he was Alexander-Walker's first coach, and he, said that he just thought he didn't want to. He was very careful to not criticize anything out of New Orleans, which tells you a lot about Alvin Gentry since they fired him. But that he kind of felt is that some of his development got. I thought the way I interpreted what he said, let me rephrase that totally, was that some of his development got kind of put off kilter, that he doesn't need to have the ball in his hands. And maybe he's not best if he has the ball in his hands. So that was kind of the first thing, is that he's an off guard who can score, who can create, who will pass it, will play the game the right way, and, needs to be able to get a chance to shoot it a little bit. Now, last night he made shots, and we're super excited about it, and I love it. And he was a delightful young man in the post-game interview. He is also a career 39% shooter and 33% shooter from three. And so far this season, he has got his effective field goal percentage is 45, which is the lowest of just about anyone in the NBA. So, let's not get overly excited. Like the same way I'm going to give Juancho Hernangomez a pass here for going 0 for 3 from three. And say, some of those shots are going to go in. I don't want us to go over the moon because Alexander-Walker made some shots. He is a career 39% corner three shooter, which I think is important. He's not been great at the rim in his career, maybe a little out of control in there. And certainly his floater zone and short game is not good, and that could be developed. In New Orleans this year was about 33%, and he shot it too much. He shot about 17, 18% of his shots. So there's certainly some, shot distribution things that could change about him. But this guy can score. I think he's scored 35 different times in his NBA career already in a very short period of time. Last year he dropped 33 times, and I think he did it either once on either side. In 1920, he dropped. He did not. So let's see if he had this season. This season dropped 30 twice. So he's dropped 35 times his NBA career. He can fill it. He's 6'5", 6'6". He's got some length in his wingspan, and he defended DeRozan and LaVine well with some size. Trent Forrest has done a great job defending threes or defending wings for us this year in a way that we really need. He's not a career 39% three-point corner three shooter. In fact, I think he's 4 of 18 this year on corner threes, and people aren't guarding him. So there is a chance, and that inability to shoot as good as Trent Forrest has been this year, when we played Dallas suddenly a third time in a short period of time, they didn't guard him at all. And teams just kind of, as you play people more and more, and the scouting of the playoffs gets more and more. So Alexander-Walker becomes a viable possibility. And the viable possibility of him is really if he can defend the way he did against Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, which is he got up on him hard. He was athletically skilled enough to be able to be up into their body. He was able to move his feet with them. He hassled them. He bothered them. He had the interest to defend in that manner. And so I thought that was really, really interesting to see how he played in that stretch and what he did. And then Quinn rewarded him, I believe, finishing with him on those matchups defensively. And LaVine was cooking a little bit. LaVine, as Donovan was having a superhuman quarter, LaVine was having a pretty darn good third quarter. Like in a regular normal night, we would have been talking about Zach LaVine's third quarter. I think he had 13 or 14 in that quarter. And, then Alexander-Walker had to come up and defend him. And I don't know whether Alexander-Walker's matchup numbers, it's going to worth looking at. We'll take a look at this. I was not planning on this. Give me 1 second. Last night, DeRozan's 4 of 5 when guarded by Alexander-Walker, and LaVine's 3 of 5. That's kind of what I suspected. It wasn't the end result. It was the effort, making them work, putting a body on them. They weren't overpowered shots. Royce actually did a pretty good job on DeRozan early. The Jazz had an interesting game plan on DeRozan. They were doubling him in the mid-range, which I've almost never seen them do before. And it seemed to bother DeRozan. He's very deliberate. He's a little slower than what he's doing. And so the Jazz took advantage of that pacing to be able to double team DeRozan in the middle of the court. And you saw DeRozan almost want to stay at 15 feet or further away, because when he got doubled at 13 and 12, he looked uncomfortable, as though he didn't have an answer of how to pass out of it and didn't have the passing lanes. And so I thought he pulled himself back a little bit and tried to play at about 17, 18 feet, because DeRozan's such a smart player, and see if he could get himself opportunities for everybody else from there. But he also didn't look like he was looking for a shot a lot. He didn't make a shot in the first quarter. He came out in the second quarter and passed him up a little bit. DeRozan's efficiency in that mid-range area is about 58%. So it's elite level. And the fact that Jazz were able to take that away last night was pretty massive in regards to the win. The defense last night was really good. And that's really probably what won last night's game, as anything, was the defense. DeRozan lived almost exclusively on long twos, which, he's really, really good at, but he didn't get anything in that paint floater zone at all last night. And so the Jazz bent his shot chart in a little bit of a different way than what you would probably expect. Hey, he gets that elbow spot, rises up at 6'7". He's, feels virtually unstoppable. But he usually takes about 30% of his shots in the short mid-range. And then he takes about 41% of his shots as long twos, because he doesn't take any threes. Last night, what the Jazz did is made it almost exclusively long twos, which are just not, for DeRozan, he's a 47% long two shooter. It's pretty good. He's 52% on short mid, though. So the Jazz took away, that's like just a subtle little movement. Like, I don't think he took, off the top of my head, I don't remember him taking a single shot in the paint other than 2 or 3 at the rim on the night. And if they were, his right foot was inside the free throw line and he faded back, and you get credit for that. But there was nothing. I don't think he took many more than 1 or 2 shots around 8 or 10 feet. Everything was 15 feet. And he's great, but that also just doesn't allow him to pass as much as he does and do some other things along the way. And I think he probably didn't. If you kind of look at his math, I think he was probably he was 2 of 2 on his threes, and I think he got about 2 of 3 at the rim. So the rest of that night comes out to be about a 6 of 15 or so, which would lead, that's great. 6 of 15 is back to 38%. So you pushed him back out a tiny bit, and then altered a little bit. And he didn't like Rudy in the middle at all. Like he was curling out of that in numerous ways. So really impressive. So back to Alexander-Walker. That defensive effort I think is vital. And, Alvin Gentry said to me, he thought he was going to be all right. He thought he's a rotation player in the NBA who can contribute. You've got to use him correctly, keep him inside of some realm and understanding of what he's doing, that he's, he tried to extend his game really, really far. And those 30-point games will make you believe that you can extend your game really, really far, but that there probably was not, he's not he can create off of actions. He's not a self-creator. He's a second side player. And that he's a good enough shooter is what Alvin said. And last night we saw it, and we also saw the second side creation. We'll see how, this is a guy, he can fill it if we need, and I don't think we're going to need him to fill it in the same way he did for New Orleans. And, New Orleans wasn't great, but he's gone over 26 times this year. He's gone over 30 twice. He can put the ball in the basket. That's not what we need. He's got it. And I think he's played that way. And if you heard our post-game interviews, very humble kid. But the stories I've heard about him around the team are that he's gone, consciously gone and got everybody's phone number, asked to make sure he knows everyone within a short period of time, was calling everyone by name. Just a real interest in being a part of the group, respecting everyone for the job they're doing. None of this, no sourness. This is a guy who was playing 20 minutes a night, suddenly was out of the rotation. So really impressive kind of young man. The other one that's impressive in that regard is Juancho Hernangomez, who Juancho Hernangomez, when we went to San Antonio, I think I shared the story, was like a rock star. He'd been there for 2 weeks. He knew absolutely every single person in the whole building. Guys were coming out of the tunnel like, Juancho! Like he literally was though he was the mayor, and he'd only been there for 2 weeks. He has a little bit of that energy to him. I've never been the best player I've ever been around in my entire career amongst teammates, and energy was George Niang. There's no one else like him. Juancho has a little bit of that. And no one is George. He has a little bit. And the question to me is whether Juancho can play the 15-minute, 18-minute George Niang role, and I'll make that case when we continue. I want to share with you about a Utah company called Summit Capital. They're a local investment group made up of successful business operators. They actually invested in Locked On. They were great for us to deal with. This is not a group who, when we met with them, was like, what's our out date? What's our return going to be? They wanted to know our business. They want to know why we did what we did. They didn't know our business very well, so they asked a ton of great questions to make sure they were comfortable, and then they invested. It was pretty cool. They are looking now to provide capital for management who's seeking to buy out the owners of a business they work in. So I'm not sure if I worded that correctly, but the concept would be you work in management of a company owned by somebody else. It's time for them to move on. You know the company better than anyone. You don't have the capital. Summit's going to come in, give you the capital, let you show your expertise, build that company to the next site, and have it grow. They are also looking for owners who are just seeking to sell their businesses or entrepreneurs seeking capital. They are entrepreneurs themselves. They approach investing with the mind of an entrepreneur. Unlike private equity or venture capital funds, they don't have artificial timelines. I can attest to that personally. And they invest in the long term. So if you have that circumstance or know someone who does, get in touch with Matt Peterson over at Summit Capital, 801-796-2033. You can text him, 801-796-2033, or Locked On Jazz at summitcaputah.com, or you can just visit summitcaputah.com for more information. Again, that number is 801-796-2033. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. For your second listen today, Locked On Now runs you through a massive night of NBA action last night with guys going off right and left. The league's crazy right now, but Kanani Stevens hosts it, and we'll take you through with the local experts giving a breakdown on all of the games on Locked On Now podcast or Locked On NBA YouTube feed. Juancho Hernangomez last night plays for the Jazz. He's the only player that has a negative on his box score last night. He does not make a three last night. And I will tell you, I saw things that make me believe he could play for us. So at least I'm sticking to my consistent narrative that I don't always want someone to make shots, and that you watch a guy the way he plays. What I saw out of him last night was a few things. I saw him run back in transition defense with a great understanding of what the Jazz were trying to do. In transition defense last night was vital. There was a play where he bypasses back cuts. We haven't had a lot of cutting. I thought that was a beautiful play. I thought he played a game with a tentativeness because he was uncomfortable and probably nervous, but with an understanding of what we were trying to do. And I thought his size was relevant. He's 6'9", 214, and I felt that last night, that he's out there at 6'9", rather than some of the other guys. And I thought he played decently sized last night. Let me give a little background on Hernangomez, because he was the forgotten guy in the draft. And part of the reason he's the forgotten guy in the draft is I think he has like $8 or $9 million on his books for next year. So he's not on our roster next year. So very naturally, there's like, he was the salary filler, but he's actually like, and I said at the time of the trade, he was the one who I thought break glass in case of emergency could help us. And I thought he could really, I actually believe that. So in Minnesota, he started 14 games and he averaged 13 points and 7 rebounds a game. Now, at that point in the season, it's like doing it right now on a bad team. And so it's a little suspect. Let's make sure that we're not like overselling something here about his 13 points. And he gets traded. Minnesota trades for him. Minnesota loses all but 4 of these games. They're playing, if you get enough minutes on the floor, you're going to score in this league. But he plays well. He plays 29 minutes a night, which he probably shouldn't. He shot 45% for the floor, 42% from 3 in that stretch. He averaged 13 points and he averaged 7 rebounds. He had 3 double-digit rebounding games. He had about 8 double-digit scoring games. He was, they were bad, and he got an opportunity. There are some things in that stretch that tell me some things that I like about him. One is he shot his rebounding rate, and rebounding rate is the percentage of rebounds you grab when you're on the floor. So if everyone got the same amount, everybody would be at 10%. Rudy's the best there is in the world at rebounding rate, and he's going to be up close to 30 as an elite rebounder. Hassan Whiteside's going to be really, really high on rebounding percentage on the offensive glass. He's probably about as good as there is in the NBA. Rudy's grabbing 37% of rebounds. He keeps everyone's rebounding rates down. Rudy grabs 25% of all rebounds available. Bojan hurt a little bit because he plays with Rudy, let's be honest, because Rudy wants every rebound. He's one of the worst rebounders for his position. So I'm just trying to give you that as a comparison. Bojan is 11% since he's come to Utah. He was 12%. And he's just not a rebounder at all. Royce O'Neal is 6'4", busts his butt to be a rebounder and to make plays. But he's not either. He was at 18, 19% last year, has slipped dramatically this year down to 14% as a defensive rebounder. Now, some of that might be playing with Hassan, who grabs more rebounds, but his 18, 19% for Royce O'Neal last year was pretty good for a guy who's 6'4". He was our second rebounder on the entire team last year. So I'm just trying to give you some context. So Juancho Hernangomez at 6'9" is an 18% defensive rebounding rate player. And he's a 39% corner 3 shooter in his career. Now, this year he's not. He's shot 11% on corner 3s, but he's played 18 games in Boston, then 5 in San Antonio, then 5 in Utah. He's been all over the map. In his 52 games in Minnesota the next year, he played 900 minutes. And he shot 56% of his 3s. So he was simply a spot-up three-point shooter at that point. He shot 45% on corner 3s, and he had a defensive rebounding rate of 20%. If we could get that for 15 minutes a night, and with his size, play defense like George Niang, just try to cover your area, let Rudy help you out, I actually think he might be the answer in the bridge lineup that has just not come together yet. So it suddenly becomes Conley, Clarkson, is Royce on the floor then, with Hernangomez and Gobert. Because if you look at him, the two things are important to me. Play the game right, give us some rebounding help, and hit some corner 3s in that lineup. Like, that's what you're looking for. Daniel House is probably in that lineup instead of it was Joe Ingles, so I'm not sure. It's probably Daniel House or whoever we're playing. Maybe it's Nickell Alexander-Walker. I don't think so, but you compare that to the other two choices. Eric Paschall's a 37% corner 3 shooter's career. Now, Paschall's been amazing, and his work with Vince LaGarza has been really good. He's gone in this 3 years from 30 to 36 to 42% this year on that corner 3. So that's pretty good. And it's interesting. I was talking to Tony Bradley last night of the Sixers now, and he was talking about how much he misses working with Vince Lagarza and how good Vince Lagarza was for his career and made him so much better. And so that was congratulations to Vince to have Tony tell me that. Pascal's been working with Vince this year and has gotten considerably better. But Pascal's defensive rebounding rate this year is 11%. His high at Golden State was 15%. His 6'6" stature actually jumps out on the defensive end where he just is not a very good rebounder. He moves his feet, battles defensively, is strong, does a bunch of things like that. But he's not a great rebounder. The corner three thing, you have to just decide what you believe, 30 to 36 to 42. Rudy Gay is a career 37% corner three shooter. The last 2 years, he was actually 29 and 31% on corner threes. It's not shots he made. His rebounding rate is at 18%. It was in the 20s in San Antonio. There's no question if Rudy Gay can get his game on, Rudy Gay is the best, highest ceiling answer for us for that position. He just doesn't have his game on yet. So let's hope he gets his game on. But if it doesn't come in for Rudy Gay, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think Juancho Hernangomez is a legitimate possibility here. He's 3 inches taller. His rebounding rate is better, and I think that's a really important thing, particularly because Gobert is getting pulled out more and more and more in the playoffs. He's going to be, and one of the things that drives me nuts is when Rudy comes all the way out to the perimeter, guards it well, and then we give up an offensive rebound on the other side because we're 6'4", trying to rebound. And so now, if you have Hernangomez, maybe you have another guy at 6'9" who can actually board a little bit for you. Rudy Gay has been really valuable in that regard for us. In those minutes. And then he's, obviously this year he's 11% in 29 games, bouncing all over the place, no rhythm on that corner three. But if he can get back to his career at 39% on a corner three, he's 6'9", he's getting that shot off. And he gets it off comfortably. And the numbers tell me that Eric Pascal's better this year at 42%. I'm telling you that I would feel more comfortable by the slightest of margins if Hernangomez was shooting that corner three than Eric Pascal. I could be wrong. And probably disrespecting Eric in a sense of how well he's shot the three and how much he's evolved this year in his shooting. So maybe that's unfair on my part, but that's probably a little bit of where I'm coming from. And then you have size. I like length. I believe in length. He's 6'9". He's 210. He's just a little bit bigger that he was than the other. So I think Hernangomez is a legitimate, now Bogey hopefully is back road trip or maybe even before the road trip. And then you got to decide, and it's a little tricky. I don't know how the coaching staff actually gets Hernangomez into that rotation spot to find out if this is true without benching Rudy Gay, which is not the right move right now. So that's the tricky one. Is as much as I talk about this, I don't actually know how the minute Bogey comes back, they're going to be able to do this. So there's my case of why I think it's a possibility. It wasn't the most Locke's totally right. It was kind of worth a thought. It's not so demand that you're about to go make a change on it that you know it's a no-brainer. And I don't actually know how you do it as a coaching staff. So I don't know if there was a lot of value on that. Andy Williams says, Holly's shout out yesterday. I heard that. I need to text Holly and say thank you for the shout out on the broadcast last night. On that. A lot of questions, great chat going on, but I'm actually out of time, and I think we fill this up. Tomorrow, Friday's show, we should be able to open it up. Clippers coming to town. We'll do a lot more Q&A plus our points gained tomorrow. Somebody want to talk about George? I'll always talk about George. Have the Jazz missed George's energy this year? Or here's what I'll say about George Niang. Everyone's talking about in Philadelphia how they have great chemistry because of the fact that Ben Simmons wasn't playing, and they kind of all implied, and they were wrong. The reason that Philadelphia had great chemistry to start the year was George Niang. I promise you. I've never seen anyone change the mood of a room, a locker room, and a team the way George Niang did. He's truly the best person around in energy I've ever covered in 25 years this league. So when you talk about Philadelphia and they talk about their chemistry this year that was so much better, and everyone implied it was Ben Simmons, I totally don't think that's it. I think it's that George Niang was there and added energy. Now, they don't seem to have that chemistry right now, so that'll be interesting. I don't know if he's, I'm not saying we don't have, I'm just telling you that that's what George would do. I could lose it on this comment right here. Last time I checked, I do live broadcasts. I would love you to be on the live broadcast team. I do. I'm on a live broadcast every night. Every night. Every night for like 13 years, over 1,000 games, I've done a live broadcast. Have a great day. David Locke, Locked On Jazz. Go listen to Locked On Now, either on NBA, either on the NBA Locked On NBA podcast, or grab it over on the Locked On Now podcast. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.